this video, we will be continuing our lesson on proteins. Um, so this part of my review on proteins. Um, the most common reference, my primary reference for this review is basically from the osmosis video. Got a lot of information coming from the video that they made, and basically for proteins, they're essential for the human diet. They basically consist of eggs, dairy, seafood, legumes, meat, nuts, and seeds. Proteins from food break down into amino acids. They get converted into proteins that practice diverse function in the body, and at the same time, proteins consist of chains of amino acids that are linked by peptide bond. This particular idea was already mentioned in part 2. This one's part 3, by the way. And proteins are chains of amino acids. If proteins are for peptide bonds, carbohydrates, or particularly glucose or polypeptides, a chain of glucose monomers. Polypeptides refer to the glycosidic bonding. Glycosidic bonding is the process that combines glucose monomers together. And for lipids, again, it's bonded by ester linkages, while for proteins, they are linked by peptide bonds. So for the average amino acid, we have the central carbon atom, we have the H2N, or the amino, the nitrogen containing group, we have the carboxylic acid group, and we have the side chain that is unique to each amino acid, which is the R group. So I suppose let's compare this diagram to the 20 amino acids that we've discussed earlier, in the previous video. So let's paste it. So as you can see, two carbons, H and O over here, and the R group. Well, the H could also be here, since this is H2 and there's another H here. In this structure, there's only an oxygen atom here, but the hydrogen atom, we have 3 over here, and here we have 2. So as you can see, this entire thing is the same as this one, which is the standard structure for every amino acid. What makes the structure different from each other is the R group, which is basically this. That's for glutamic acid. This one is for aspartic acid. The R group is this one for lysine, this one for arginine, this one for histidine, many more. As you can see, the structure below is still the same. Now, back to where we left off. Humans use only 20 amino acids to make human protein. So the structures that I've introduced to you in the previous video, this is the entire list, and according to the osmosis video, it is divided into 3 categorizations. And these are the ones. We have the non-essential amino acids, the ones that we can get from foods. Plus, we can also make ourselves. Our own bodies can make these amino acids. They're highlighted in light blue. which are as follows: alanine, asparagine, aspartic acid, glutamic acid, and serine. For the conditionally essential amino acids, those are highlighted in light green. Healthy bodies can make them. Can't make our bodies cannot make these amino acids when we are experiencing starvation, or if we have an inborn error of metabolism. So yeah, basically only healthy bodies can synthesize these amino acids. They consist of arginine, cysteine, proline, glycine, tyrosine, and glutamine. For the third categorization, we have the essential amino acids. These are the ones that we can only get from food. So they are highlighted in yellow, earth yellow. We have methionine, phenylalanine, valine, histidine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, threonine, and tryptophan. So I mentioned in the lesson on carbohydrates about dietary fibers. Basically cellulose, which human enzymes cannot digest. Human enzymes, what I mean by that is basically amylase that only digests amylose, which is a component, or like, say it's a type of starch. And yeah, for dietary protein, it provides the essential amino acids, the ones highlighted in green, and they are needed to make proteins, hormones, and other important molecules. There's a process named or called proteolysis. This is the process of breaking down dietary protein. You can say that this could be correlated. No, not correlated. This could be associated with hydrolysis, which is the opposite of dehydration reaction. Hydrolysis is basically the breaking down of polysaccharides in, say, for instance, the stomach. Since something called hydrochloric acid is capable of making hydrolysis possible, digesting of carbohydrates, polysaccharides turning into glucose monomers, and those sugars eventually get absorbed by human cells. They get transported to cells, and it's also needed by the mitochondria for the synthesis of ATP, which is needed for it's basically fuel. ATP is basically fuel for cell functions. So back to the topic, proteolysis. I'm not sure if proteolysis is somehow the same thing as hydrolysis, but yeah, you can research more on that. Proteolysis is the process of breaking down dietary protein. So the food in stomach, upon digestion, the hydrochloric acid denatures the protein, causing it to unfold, which makes it more accessible to enzymatic action. So enzymatic activity is one of the functions of our, if I remember correctly, membrane proteins. Membrane proteins. For step 2, pepsin, which is a protein made by the gastric chief cells. Gastric, like as in gastric juice. Pepsin converts protein to oligopeptide chains. Then it's moved to the duodenum part of the stomach, and for step 3, digestive enzymes, which are synthesized by the pancreas, convert these oligopeptide chains into first tripeptides, and they become dipeptides, and ultimately they eventually become individual amino acids. So if peptide bond is responsible for the formation of amino acids, for turning amino acids into proteins. Proteolysis is the breaking down of protein, dietary protein. So for the individual amino acids, some remain in the intestinal cells while most enter the bloodstream. So, how do I say this? Yeah. So in the intestinal cells, these individual amino acids remain in the intestines to make intestinal enzymes and new cells. But most of these amino acids enter the bloodstream and eventually become transported to other parts of the human body. So, yeah. We all know that proteins are important for many body functions. They employ a lot of specialties, unique specialties, something that we've discussed in the previous video as well. They're basically these protein functions. They act as enzymatic proteins, defensive proteins, storage, transport, hormonal, receptor, contractile, and motor, as well as being important components for certain structural things such as keratin, collagen, elastin, etc. Alright, so for animal-based protein, you could say soy foods. They provide all 9 essential amino acids in adequate amounts. And for plant foods, some have a high amount of protein. There are also low amounts in others. But to make sure that you get enough protein, to have a healthy diet, you need to eat a lot. You need to eat a variety of foods to provide all 9 of the essential amino acids. So for daily protein requirements, the minimum amount of protein to avoid a progressive nitrogen loss is basically 0.80 grams per kilogram of your body weight. So for certain assumptions, for children 1 to 3 years old, they generally need 13 grams. For children 4 to 8 years old, they need 19 grams. 9 to 13, 34 grams. And yeah, for teenagers, for girls, they need 46 grams. And for boys, they generally need 52 to 56 grams. So yeah, males need more proteins compared to girls. There's usually no health risk with eating a lot of protein, and in the clinical settings, individuals who are at risk for protein deficiency are as follows: people who are experiencing malnutrition or the lack of absorbing the nutrition that they need, people who have trauma, people who have burn injuries, first, second degree, third degree burns, or even worse, fourth degree burns, and people with various conditions that impact nutrient absorption. So these people may have increased needs for protein. In summary, protein is the cornerstone of the human diet. It is a major component of the human body. We have 5 non-essential proteins, 6 conditionally essential, and 9 essential proteins. The 9 essential proteins are the ones we get from our diet. And yeah, our needs on protein vary depending on what stage we are in life, what our age is basically, and number 2, our health status. So yeah, people with certain health conditions may require additional protein needs, since there's a tendency for them to have an increased risk in protein deficiency. So yeah. that's it for this video.